So we'll now move to questions without notice. Yes, that's where we are. And I call Senator Cash.
Thank you very much, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Sheena Gutnick, the daughter of Reuven Morrison, who was murdered in the Bondi terrorist attack, wrote publicly, "Australia did not fail quietly. It failed loudly, repeatedly, and with full knowledge. Its government watched hatred grow and chose to do nothing. They minimised it, they excused it, they dismissed Jewish warnings as noise." Minister, those are not my words. They are the words of a victim's family member. Will the Prime Minister now say sorry and apologise to Jewish Australians for his government's failure to act decisively against anti-Semitism, despite repeated warnings as anti-Semitic incidents surged after the 7th of October 2023?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Wong.
Thank you. First, again, as the Prime Minister and others, including myself, have done, extend our personal condolences to Ms Gutnick and to all those who have lost a loved one in this horrific attack. It is an attack that was targeted, evil, anti-Semitic, ISIS-inspired, and it was an attack on Jewish Australians. And all of us grieve for every person and every family and every community that has been made to suffer because of hate-filled and senseless violence. The Prime Minister has made very clear the sense of responsibility and the weight of responsibility that he feels for an atrocity that happened, as he said, while he is Prime Minister, and he has said publicly he is sorry for the grief and pain that the Jewish community and the entire nation has experienced, as have I. And our responsibility now is to do all we can to ensure this does not happen again. That is the solemn responsibility that this government and this parliament has. And that is what we are seeking to do, to listen to the Jewish community, the entire nation.
Senator Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Cash.
It is a point of order on relevance. It was direct in terms of will the Prime Minister actually, for the first time since October the 7th, 2023, apologise to Jewish Australians for your
Senator
government's
Cash.
disgraceful
Senator
failings?
Cash, calling a point of order is not an opportunity to make a statement. The Minister is being directly relevant to your question. Minister Wong, did you wish to continue?
I addressed your question directly, Senator Cash, and I did so because I think it is important. But I also believe, and I think Australians believe, that it is important for us to not just speak about, but to act to ensure this does not happen again. And that is why this government prioritised the drafting.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Cash, first supplementary.
Sabina Kleitman, daughter of Alex Kleitman, said this: "Our government could not protect the 15 innocent souls who were taken from us and those that were injured. It's their duty to all Australians to provide safety and security for all." And Jenny Reuter, whose uncle was murdered, said this: "We were hunted like animals by extremists." Can the Prime Minister say the one word the Jewish community have been wanting to hear? Sorry for failing to keep you safe.
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Wong.
The Prime Minister has responded to that publicly, and the Prime Minister has also done what a leader of integrity does, which is he has engaged, he has listened, he has heard and experienced with respect the pain, the grief and the anger. And he has determined to act to ensure that we do all we can to prevent any such attack occurring again, and that we confront anti-Semitism in all its forms. Anti-Semitism, you would have heard me say in this place many times, Senator, it is an attack on Jewish Australians, but it is an attack on Australia. It is on who we are.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Cash, second supplementary.
I've listened carefully to both answers, and despite your words, Senator Wong, you have yet again failed to say sorry to the Jewish community on behalf of the Prime Minister. So I ask again, it is a simple word. Will the Prime Minister say sorry? Sorry for your government's actions that it failed to address the anti-Semitic crisis in Australia, despite repeated warnings from the Jewish community since October the 7th, 2023.
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Wong.
So I have done so twice. I have responded twice directly to that, Senator. This is a moment where we have a choice as a country about uniting in our response to anti-Semitism, uniting in our response to hatred, uniting the country against prejudice, hatred, anti-Semitism, and uniting the country around this legislation, which is intended to contribute to keeping people safer. I think it is a matter of some regret that a moment that could have been a moment of national unity has not been so.
Is it October the 9th,
because
Senator Cash.
has not been so because some in this place. I'll take the interjection. Yes, I did, and I responded.
Thank you, Minister.
And
the
I
time
responded.
for responding has expired. Order across the chamber. Senator Sheldon.
My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Australians are rightly appalled at the horrific shootings that took place at Bondi on December the 14th. An anti-Semitic, ISIS-inspired terrorist attack on Australian Jews. Our thoughts remain with all those affected, particularly members of our Australian Jewish community. It is essential that Australians come together during this difficult time. How is the Albanese Labor government responding to these horrific events?
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. Minister Wong.
Thank you to Senator Sheldon for that question. And what we know is this. The Bondi terrorist attack of December 14 was a horrific act. It was an horrific act of anti-Semitic violence. It was an horrific act inspired by ISIS. And ISIS is a radical extremist ideology, a perversion of Islam that has no place in our country. It was an attack on Australian Jews, and it was an attack on the Australia we know and the Australia we cherish. And our thoughts remain with the loved ones of those who were killed and those still recovering from injury. We pay tribute to the emergency services who responded without hesitation, and to the everyday Australians who showed such immense courage in the face of terror. We pay tribute to Ahmed Al-Ahmad, to Sophia and Boris Gurman, to Rabbi Label Lazaroff and Geffen Bitten. And I'm pleased that the government was able to facilitate Mr Bitten's return to Israel for medical treatment. In response to this attack, the Albanese government has sought to unify the country, to unite the country, whilst taking strong action to crack down on hate, on radicalisation and on anti-Semitism. We've established the Royal Commission into Anti-Semitism and Social Cohesion, supported by Dennis Richardson's independent review into the federal law enforcement and intelligence agencies. It will investigate anti-Semitism in Australia. It will make recommendations to assist federal agencies to tackle anti-Semitism, and it will examine the circumstances of the terror attack. And it will make other recommendations to strengthen social cohesion and counter the spread of ideologically and religiously motivated extremism in this country. We want to strengthen social cohesion and bring people together.
Has expired. Senator Sheldon, first supplementary.
Australians expect their leaders to work together to eliminate anti-Semitism and strengthen our social cohesion.
Order.
What other actions has the Albanese Labor government taken since the attack to tackle anti-Semitism and keep Australians safe?
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. Minister Wong.
Well, this government has acted to confront anti-Semitism. This government has acted to crack down on extremism and hatred. And this government has acted always in the spirit of national unity. We have introduced new powers for the Minister for Home Affairs to reject visas or cancel visas for those who spread hate and division. The Safety Commissioner, the Special Envoy and the Minister for Communications are working to address anti-Semitism online, and we are building on the Envoy's plan to combat anti-Semitism, an aspect of which included racial vilification, something that I note that those opposite have walked away from, despite calling for, despite the
Minister Wong, please. Across the chamber, all senators will come to order. Senator Watt. Senator Watt. Every senator will have an opportunity to make a contribution if you wish, not now during question time. Minister, please continue.
We've invested in immediate mental health support for those who are dealing with the trauma of Bondi, and we will keep working to bring Australians together, because hatred and extremism can never divide us in this country.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Sheldon, second supplementary.
Why is it important for the Albanese Labor government to respond to these events both by taking action to enact gun reform and strengthen hate laws and migration controls?
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. As the Prime Minister said when he announced the intention to recall Parliament and to legislate in the way that we have described, he said that those who had committed these horrendous acts at Bondi had hatred in their minds and lethal weapons in their hands. And this Parliament, this government, needs to address both. So we are seeking to get dangerous guns off our streets with the largest national buyback since 1996. Gun reforms limiting the number of firearms to be held by any one individual, because someone in suburban Sydney probably doesn't need 6 guns. 6 guns.
Order.
They limit open-ended licensing and allow additional use of criminal intelligence to underpin firearms licensing. And our reforms ensure that only Australian citizens can own guns. So these are important reforms that continue the work of John Howard, Tim Fischer and Kim.
For responding has expired. Order. Order. Order across the chamber. Senator McKenzie. Order. Senator Ruston.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Macquarie University academic Dr Randa Abdel Fattah has led children in calls for intifada, and she has rejects the idea that Zionists have the right to be culturally safe. The Premier of our home state of South Australia, Peter Malinauskas, has said that he, and I quote, is of the view that the statements and actions attributed to Dr Abdel Fattah go beyond reasonable public debate, being anti-Semitic and hateful at worst and deeply offensive and insulting at best. Do you agree with Premier Malinauskas that Dr Abdel Fattah's statements and actions are anti-Semitic and hateful?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister Wong.
Well, I think we should I oppose, and all of us should oppose, calls for intifada. And I believe Jewish Australians, all Australians, are entitled to cultural safety. And my views on these issues are long-standing and consistent over many years in public life and over the last few years as Foreign Minister. I have consistently made those views clear. In relation to this issue, I've been asked about this on a number of occasions. I've made the point that, as I understand it, the person in question is taking legal action against the Premier, and I don't propose to comment any further, but my views on the issues are clear.
Order. 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 Senator Ruston, second supplementary. I beg your pardon, first supplementary.
Thank you. Given, Minister, that you apparently agree that Dr Abdel Fattah's comments and actions are anti-Semitic, given the answer you gave to my primary question, will you condemn the collective boycott of the Adelaide Writers' Week by supporters of Dr Abdel Fattah? And could you actually confirm that you do agree that her comments were anti-Semitic?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister Wong.
Senator, first, I have been much more focused on the legislation and the package of gun law reform, hate speech, and the racial vilification legislation, which we cannot proceed with, than some of the issues that you describe. Mr Burke, I think, has responded more broadly. I have made clear my views on the use of those statements, and my views on the use of those statements is consistent. I have made these comments before.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Ruston.
Thank you, President. To be clear on a point of direct relevance, I think I was very clear and very short in my question about asking whether the Minister could confirm whether she condemns the comments that were made by Dr Abdel Fattah and whether she was prepared to condemn the collective boycott of Adelaide Writers' Week
Senator Ruston.
by those that are boycotting
The Minister is being clear and direct in her answers to your question. Minister Wong.
I have been asked about this publicly, is that I am a strong supporter, as is, I think, every South Australian, of the Adelaide Festival and our reputation as the festival state, and I'm sure that will continue, and I'm sure it will continue to be internationally renowned.
Thank you, Minister. The time for responding has expired. Senator Ruston, second supplementary.
Well, thank you, President. Well, to be perfectly clear then, Minister, could you please answer me as to whether you then support the comments that were made yesterday by Minister Burke, who you've referred to, when he said that dealing with anti-Semitism is a matter for the festival alone? Do you believe that the matters in relation to anti-Semitism are a matter for the Adelaide Festival, or do you believe, like your Prime Minister said, there is no place for anti-Semitism in this country?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister Wong.
I have been on the record, certainly in my time as Foreign Minister to date, but also all my life, about prejudice being an issue we all have responsibility to confront. Anti-Semitism is a hatred that we all have a responsibility to confront. That has been my consistent position, Senator, and it always will be.
Minister Wong,
Thank
please
you.
resume your seat. Senator Ruston.
Very much. In relation to direct relevance to the question that I was asking, the Prime Minister has made one comment and Minister Burke has made another. I'm just seeking to understand which of those you agree with.
Senator Ruston, points of order are not an opportunity to make statements. I will address your point of order interjection and say once again that the Minister is being relevant. Minister Wong, did you wish to continue?
I would make this point. I was asked previously about references in a different context to Intifada, and I'll refer you to those comments, Senator, because what I did say was I agreed with Ms Segal.
Senator Ruston, you've asked your question.
What I said was I agreed with Gillian Segal, the anti-Semitism envoy, in her views about the way in which those phrases have been used to whip up hatred.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters.
President, my question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. In the first 3 weeks of 2026, we've seen cyclones and flooding in North Queensland, floods in Sydney, fires and heatwave conditions in South Australia, and in Victoria, the worst bushfires since the 2019-20 Black Summer, and catastrophic flash flooding on the Great Ocean Road. This extreme weather is undeniably worsened by climate change, which is driven by burning coal and gas. How can you possibly have approved the expansion of a thermal coal mine in Queensland last Friday and now be considering further drilling for oil and gas off the Great Ocean Road?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
I'm happy to try and respond as best as I can, Senator, but I'm sure that the Minister, Minister Watt, could probably give you a more detailed answer than I can about EPBC approvals, which I think was part of your question. I mean, the government has made our position on climate clear. We want to continue to transition our economy. We believe that is economically responsible as well as responsible from an intergenerational and environmental perspective. We also know it is not easy. We also know we have historically had a very fossil fuel dependent economy, a very resource-rich economy, and if we are going to transition responsibly, we need to make sure we build those industries, including export industries, those skills and capacities which will be needed in a world that pays a premium for lower carbon goods and services. In relation to energy, you would know, because you've observed this over years, that the energy transition is a really important part of transforming our economy. And we have traditionally had, obviously, a very fossil fuel dependent energy system, with all that means, because we had access to lower price resources. Shifting that is not easy, and the government has worked on that with great intent since we came to government, and with the legacy, as you know, of what 22 failed energy plans and climate denial over the previous government's term has meant. It meant that there was disinvestment. There was disinvestment. That is, people gave notice that they were closing coal-fired power stations and no one wanted to invest further. So that transition is something we have worked on since we came to government. There is a lot more to do, and the government will keep doing that work for the benefit not only of household budgets but future generations.
Senator Waters, first supplementary.
You don't transition off coal and gas by opening more of it. And it's the people in affected communities who are now looking at millions of dollars in clean-up costs. What is your government doing to make the coal and gas companies driving this damage pay for the consequences, rather than the innocent people being devastated by repeat climate catastrophes?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
Well, Senator, I'd make 2 points. First is all projects must meet environmental requirements to be approved, including mining and resource projects. And second, that we have approved, and I'm grateful to Senator Watt for assisting me with this, some 130 new renewable energy projects since being elected in 2022. And that includes solar farms, wind farms, batteries and
Minister,
more.
please resume your seat. Senator Waters.
Yes, President, point of order on relevance. When will the polluters pay rather than people pay for the climate consequences?
Yes, that was part of your question, as was an issue around transition. I believe the minister's being relevant, but I'll continue to listen carefully. Minister's indicated she's finished her response. Senator Waters, second supplementary.
So not only does this government refuse to make the climate polluters pay for the damage they cause, but the taxpayer is also subsidising that damage. Why are we paying billions every year through fuel tax credits to subsidise big coal and gas corporations to burn fossil fuels and worsen natural disasters?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
Senator, really the answer to that is my first response. We do take the responsibility of being a government that works to change our economy, change our energy system very seriously. But unlike you, we recognise that that involves work, policy, economics. It's not just an angry political slogan. And we take responsibility as a government for doing that, and we will continue to do that. And you have seen that by the investment in renewables since we came to government. That will continue. And we will continue to be focused on the transition, which we know will take many, many years.
Thank you, Minister. Senator O'Neill.
Thank you very much, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Home Affairs, Senator Watt. The anti-Semitic terror attack at Bondi Beach on December 14 last year was the deadliest terror attack on Australian soil. What steps is the Albanese government taking to address both the motivation and the means of this attack to ensure something like this can never happen again?
Thank you, Senator O'Neill. Senator Watt.
Thanks very much, President, and thanks Senator O'Neill, who I know has had consistent advocacy on these matters, not just since the Bondi attack but well beforehand as well. As I think all Australians know, the terrorists who carried out the anti-Semitic Bondi attack had hatred in their hearts, and guns in their hands. And any response to this horrific attack that ignores either hatred or guns is an incomplete response. And that's why the Albanese Labor government is acting on both the motivation and the method for this attack by strengthening laws to confront hate and extremism and by reforming gun laws to keep Australians safe. Australia now has more than 4 million firearms in circulation. This is more than at the time of the Port Arthur massacre nearly 30 years ago. That fact alone requires us to confront a difficult truth. Our current system allowed someone who posed a deadly risk to legally access firearms. That cannot be allowed to happen again. The Albanese Labor government's reforms that we're considering this week restore the principle that firearms ownership in Australia is a conditional privilege, secondary to public safety. So what these laws will do is reduce the number of guns in the community, strengthen background checks, improve intelligence sharing and make sure that people who do not need guns or who might pose a risk cannot obtain them. You really would think that's something that this entire parliament could support. In the wake of the tragedy at Bondi on the 14th of December, we as a parliament have a responsibility to come together and act decisively to make sure that Australians can be safe and feel safe. We can do this, just like the country did after the Port Arthur massacre in 1996, and just like John Howard did 20 years ago, the government will establish a national gun buyback scheme to purchase back arms that are not necessary and shouldn't be around.
Senator O'Neill, first supplementary.
Thank you for that fulsome response, Minister. Could you also explain what this means for Australian gun owners and the importance of sharing accurate information about the gun reforms?
Thank you, Senator O'Neill. Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator O'Neill. It is important that Australians have accurate information about what the gun laws the government is proposing will actually do, rather than all sorts of furphies that are being propagated by people who don't support these laws to justify voting against those laws. Let me begin by saying that if you have a legitimate reason to own a gun, these changes are not about you. But of course that hasn't stopped those opposite peddling their misinformation about what these reforms are about. Our reforms are not a blanket ban on firearms. Our reforms will not stop Australian athletes from competing internationally or accessing the equipment they need. Our reforms will not stop those with a genuine need, such as feral pest controllers and sporting shooters, from obtaining a firearm. Our reforms will not stop Australian farmers and primary producers from being able to perform their daily tasks. People with a genuine, legitimate reason to own a firearm, like primary producers, feral pest controllers and sporting shooters, will still be able to.
Has expired. Senator O'Neill, second supplementary.
Thank you so much for some of the correction of misinformation. What will these sensible gun reforms mean in practice? What effect would these reforms have had on the Bondi terrorists?
Thank you, Senator O'Neill. Minister Watt.
Thanks again, Senator O'Neill. If this national reform package, including the hate crimes bill and the gun law reforms, had already been in place, the gunmen involved in the Bondi terrorist attack would not have been eligible to hold firearms at all. They would have had none. The father in this incident would have been ineligible because he was not a citizen. The firearms that they were using would not have been available to them. And the son, who of course is now facing charges, who didn't have a firearms licence in any event, had he tried, any intelligence holdings with respect to him would have formed part of the licensing decisions. Now, no one is pretending that dealing with guns deals with everything behind the Bondi attack, but it deals with the method used to commit this atrocity. And we must deal with that method, despite the fact that we see some opposite pretend that these laws are about something completely different. As David Marr, the brother of former police officer Peter Marr, who was killed at Bondi, said, an anti-Semite without a gun is a hate-filled person. An anti-Semite with a gun is a killer.
Answering has expired. Senator David Pocock.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Home Affairs, Senator Watt. On the 7th of December 2025, I wrote to the Minister for Home Affairs seeking urgent funding for critical safety upgrades at the National Jewish Memorial Centre. The centre has had these upgrades costed at just over $100,000, noting that the government has been working on various priority measures over the Christmas and New Year period, Can the minister update the Senate on the status of that request and whether a decision has now been made?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President. Thanks, Senator Pocock, for the question. I will come to the specific point in a moment, but it's worth reminding the chamber that since the Bondi attack, the Prime Minister has announced several supports to support the Jewish community to the value of $102 million. And those measures are designed to enhance the safety of Australia's Jewish community, demonstrating our ongoing commitments to addressing anti-Semitism. Now, the National Jewish Memorial Centre that you've asked about has previously received funding through different pathways. I'm aware that Senator Gallagher, in her role as Senator for the ACT, as well as Finance Minister, has been working very closely with the organisation concerned about potentially accessing further funding. I recognise the letter that you've written, Senator Pocock, and as I say, Senator Gallagher has been very active on this issue as well, including meeting with the organisation, as I understand again yesterday. The development of a grant opportunity toward additional security funding is being prioritised, and organisations will be able to apply for additional funding when announced. The intention would be that the Executive Council of Australian Jewry would administer this funding when it's available. So, as I say, the government, well before the Bondi attack, had expended significant funds, rightly, to strengthen security around synagogues, Jewish schools, other Jewish institutions. We've made additional commitments in that regard since the Bondi attack, and clearly it's the case that a range of senators have been advocating, whether it be yourself, Senator Pocock, Senator Gallagher, and no doubt many others as well, and we'll continue to consider those applications.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Pocock, first supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. As you said, there's been funding before the Bondi terror attack. And my understanding is that they asked for money for this and it was denied. Given there's now $104 million on the table, can you give any indication? Surely these are the sorts of upgrades that are actually urgent. We have a community that's asking for money. There's money on the table. Why has there been no answer over the last month?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Watt.
Thanks, Senator Pocock. I understand that in terms of previous requests for funding from this organisation, 2 of the 3 items that they requested funding were approved. Without in any way attributing blame here, the decisions as to how funds should be expended previously and which organisation should receive those funds was made at arm's length from government. Our role was to provide the funding and set up a process for those decisions to be made independently. There were no doubt good reasons for the decisions that were made previously about which elements of that funding were approved and which ones were not. But as I say, we understand the very genuine request that has been made by the organisation, supported by you, supported by Senator Gallagher, and we'll no doubt have more to say about that before too long.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Pocock, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, given the heightened security risks facing Jewish institutions and the relatively modest cost of this upgrade, given there's $100 million on the table, what is the process? When will a decision be made? Who makes the decision? When will this money actually flow? People see big amounts being pledged, and then on the ground they're asking, well, where is this money given the urgency?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Watt.
Thanks, Senator Pocock. Well, obviously, there needs to be a process to determine where that funding will go. And I think we should remember that it is relatively soon after that horrific attack on the 14th of December, and the government has acted with urgency previously in providing funding under previous rounds, and we'll be certainly doing that again now that we've announced additional funding. Senator Gallagher has advised me that she provided some advice yesterday to this organisation about how they could strengthen their application and how they could consider undertaking a full assessment of the site for its risk rather than the particular part of the site that they had been particularly interested in. I understand the organisation has taken that feedback on board and intends to have that work done. So, we look forward to receiving that application, as we do from a number of other organisations, and it's certainly our commitment to provide Jewish Australians with the security that they deserve.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Pocock, I'm also advised Senator Lambie has given you her question, so I'll call you again. Senator Pocock.
Thank you. My question is to the Foreign Minister, Senator Wong. Minister Wong, as you would know better than anyone in this place, the protests in Iran have been largely suppressed by a brutal crackdown. Thousands have been killed and a communications blackout has been in place. From the images, recordings and accounts that have made it out so far, some verified, others not, the deliberate, unrestrained and savage targeting of civilians by government forces is hard to adequately describe. Huge concerns have been expressed by members of the Iranian community here in Canberra and across the country, and more generally amongst people in the community who are concerned about what they are seeing. Please can you outline the steps that the Australian government has taken and is contemplating taking in response to this crisis?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Well, first, Australia condemns the Iranian government's violent crackdown on its own people. We call, along with others, on Iran to protect the rights and respect the rights of its citizens. The killing of protesters, the use of force, arbitrary arrest, the blackouts on telecommunications, all of these repressive measures must stop. I have said, and I say again, Australia stands with the brave people of Iran in their struggle against oppression. Now, we have taken strong action to hold the Iranian regime to account. And that action has included sanctions on some 200 Iran-linked persons and entities, including almost 100 IRGC-linked individuals and entities. We have strengthened our sanctions framework in order to target those involved in oppression inside Iran, including against women and girls, and I again publicly salute the courage of Iranian women and girls in particular. We were at the forefront of efforts to remove Iran from the Commission for the Status of Women, and we co-sponsored a successful Human Rights Council resolution establishing an independent investigation into human rights violations. I also want to talk about the role of Iran in our society. We will not allow Iran or any nation to undermine the safety of Australians, and we will not allow Iran or any nation to sow division in the Australian community. And you will have seen we took unprecedented diplomatic action in response to the attacks on the Australian Jewish community.
Expired. Senator Pocock, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Given the near total shutdown of the internet and mobile phone calls in Iran, with intermittent calls only returning in recent days, please could you outline the support that the government is providing Australian Iranian communities to reach loved ones and seek information updates about what's happening in the country?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Wong.
I know what my thoughts are with the Australian Iranian community at this time, and I anticipate I speak for the chamber that our thoughts are with the Australian Iranian community, people who, Australian Iranians who have family members who are observing in Iran, who are observing or seeing or reading some of the horrific news which is coming out of Iran. That is incredibly distressing, extremely distressing for the community, and that distress is compounded by the telecommunications blackout, which means people haven't been able to contact loved ones and relatives to check up on their welfare. I'm advised that the Department for Home Affairs continues to engage with the Iranian diaspora community regarding this concerning situation, and that work will continue.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Pocock, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Minister. Will Australia commit to doing more to pressure the Iranian regime, including expanding targeted human rights sanctions, speaking up publicly, providing visa assistance to families of those here in Australia, and coordinating with allies for stronger action to support the Iranian people?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. We have done those things, Senator Pocock, and we will continue to do so.
Senator Bell.
My question goes to the Minister representing the Prime Minister. Minister, following the terrorist attacks in Bondi, the deadliest in our nation's history, the Prime Minister has failed to acknowledge that radical Islamic extremism was the driving ideology behind it. You cannot defeat what you won't define, and the Prime Minister has muddied the waters. This refusal to clearly name the threat has allowed this threat to spread unchecked, and as a result, Australians have been placed in danger. When will the Prime Minister finally concede that refusing to name radical Islamic extremism as the driver of this terrorist attack on Australians makes future attacks more likely and helps anti-Semitism continue to spread unchecked?
Thank you. Senator Watt. Senator Watt, come to order. Minister Wong.
Senator Bell, first, the Prime Minister, Mr Burke, myself, we have all identified very clearly, on the advice of the AFP and ASIO, which has also been part of the public discussion and public reports, that this is an anti-Semitic terrorist attack that was inspired by ISIS, which is an organisation that peddles hatred and is inspired by a radical perversion of Islam. We have said that. And second, I am seeking, in a time where we are grieving the worst terrorist attack in Australian history, not to engage in partisanship, but I would say this, Senator. Your party just voted against bills which made it, which enabled the government to crack down on hate groups. Your party just voted against legislation which was all about tackling hate. So your party has come out against.
How are you going to vote today?
Order.
Question or you vote?
Your party.
Order on my right. Order. Minister Wong, please continue.
Your party just voted against laws which enable tougher action being taken on visas. Both the cancellation of visas and the refusal of visas. So, Senator Bell, to come in here and say you want stronger action taken on hate, whilst your party over there votes against legislation which would enable stronger protection on migration in terms of visas for hate preachers and others, that your party voted against laws which are designed to crack down on those who preach hatred, and organisations which do that. With respect, Senator, I think
you,
that is not a consistent position.
Has expired. Order. Order. Order on my right. I've called order 3 times. I should not have to do that. Senator Bell, first supplementary.
Minister, you talk about hatred, you talk about perversions, but we want you to talk clearly about radical Islamic extremism. And this government's failure to enforce existing laws since the October 7 attacks
Bell,
2 years ago.
Senator Bell, please resume your seat. Order again on my right. The senator has the right to have his question heard in silence. Senator Bell, please continue.
The refusal to unequivocally call out radical Islamic ideology driving anti-Semitism in Australia has allowed this problem to escalate into a terrorist attack on Jewish Australians. When will this government accept responsibility?
Thank you, Senator Bell. I'm waiting for the Senate to come to order. Minister Wong.
That has just passed the House, that you will have the opportunity to consider shortly, is a bill that, amongst other things, enables the Minister for Home Affairs to cancel or refuse a visa for people who want to come here and spread hate. It's a bill your colleagues voted against, and I would ask you to give, if your position is you want government to be able to crack down on those who spread hate, to reconsider your position on this legislation between now and when it comes to this chamber.
Ask your leader, Barnaby, what to do.
Thank you. Senator Bell, second supplementary.
Minister, you talk about passing legislation to deal with the problem, but what we've actually seen today occur in this parliament is a farce. Your government, with help from the Liberals on one hand and the Greens on the other, you are rushing through massive changes to our nation's laws with no real scrutiny. 2 bills with no real scrutiny, and you are shutting down debate. When will your Prime Minister accept responsibility for this farce and resign?
Order. Order across the chamber. Order. Order. Minister Wong.
Senator, we believe that the worst terrorist event on Australian soil in our history requires a serious response, a responsible and serious response, and that is the approach the government is taking. With respect, that question was not a serious response.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Darmanin.
Question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Emergency Management, Senator McAllister. It's been a tough summer for communities across Australia who have experienced severe weather events, from dangerous bushfires in Victoria to flooding in northwest Queensland. Communities in my home state of Victoria have experienced catastrophic fires, with thousands of firefighters courageously facing challenging conditions to protect communities and bring fires under control. How has the Albanese Labor government worked with the Victorian government to respond to the fires and support communities as they recover?
Thank you, Senator Darmanin. Minister McAllister.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Darmanin. I know that all Victorian senators will have been standing with their communities in what has been a very difficult time. In the last weeks, we have seen communities across Victoria devastated by dangerous bushfires, and I want to thank the thousands of first responders who have braved very challenging conditions and protected their communities. We know that it is a very difficult time, and many in the community have had to evacuate and many have experienced damage to their homes and to their businesses. And I want to thank all of those Victorians who have listened to the authorities and also those who have reached out and helped out their neighbours. Our thoughts are with the family and the friends of the person who died in the Longwood bushfire and the rescuers who were with them at that time. While the firefighting effort is far from over, we want to support Victorians to get back on their feet as quickly as possible. The Albanese government has activated the Disaster Recovery Allowance for workers who have experienced a loss of income as a result of the bushfires, as well as the Australian Government Disaster Recovery Payment, which provides one-off financial assistance for Victorians who have experienced major impacts from the fires. We're working hand in hand with the Victorian Government to activate more than $77 million in additional assistance. Primary producers are the backbone of many of these local economies, and we are providing $75,000 grants to help cover the costs of clean-up and reinstating their enterprises. We've established a $12 million council support fund to support bushfire-affected councils to restore vital community assets and services, and we're investing more than $82 million to restore and repair bushfire-affected roads. We continue to monitor the situation in Victoria, and our government will work with the Victorian government and stands ready to consider.
Thank you, Minister. The time for responding has expired. Senator Darmanin, first supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. Many communities across northern Queensland are also experiencing the impacts of ongoing flooding and severe weather. Emergency service workers, volunteers and the community have all been supporting each other through this very difficult time. What assistance has the Albanese Labor government activated to support Queensland communities impacted by the recent flooding?
Thank you, Senator Darmanin. Minister McAllister.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Senator. North West Queensland has experienced a series of monsoonal floods, and ex-tropical cyclone Koji has caused widespread damage to people's homes and to their livelihoods. Queenslanders are resilient, supporting each other during these challenging times, but this is a time to help them. Supporting these communities in North West Queensland is and will remain a priority for the Albanese government. We know that recovery starts with people. That's where we always start. It's why we've worked with the Queensland Government to activate personal hardship assistance to help ensure impacted residents can meet essential needs like food and clothing. We know that the extensive flooding has been particularly tough for farmers in North West Queensland, and it's why we have made available disaster recovery grants of up to $75,000 for impacted primary producers and activated $7 million in emergency fodder assistance to help farmers keep their stock fed.
Answering has expired. Senator Darmanin, second supplementary.
We know Australians are facing increasingly frequent and severe natural disasters. The Albanese Labor government has been committed to strengthening the government's capacity to respond to events like these and to help people recover. What measures has the government invested to prepare for this higher-risk weather season?
Thank you, Senator Darmanin. Minister McAllister.
Thank you, President. Well, the Albanese government has made record investments in the Commonwealth's emergency management capabilities to better prepare and protect communities. We've increased funding to the National Aerial Firefighting Fleet. It includes the large air tanker and the Black Hawk helicopters, which were deployed to Victoria to provide extra support to state authorities who lead the response. We established the National Emergency Management Stockpile, which includes items like generators and emergency accommodation, which states and territories can call upon. We know that as the climate changes, we can expect more frequent and more severe disasters, and it's why we want to help communities. We want to build resilience against future disasters with our $1 billion Disaster Ready Fund, and we recently committed $14.6 million, as an example, for a cyclone shelter on Palm Island in northern Queensland to protect that local community.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Mackenzie.
My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Australia doesn't have a gun problem. It has a problem with anti-Semitism and Islamic extremism. The government has failed for 2 years to take effective action against anti-Semitism and extremism. Minister, can you provide a guarantee to the Australian public that the 2 terrorists who perpetrated the 14 December Bondi attack would not have been able to do so had the government rushed these flawed firearm bills been in place at the time?
Thank you, Senator Mackenzie. Minister Wong.
Senator Mackenzie, I think what most of us believe is that this attack does highlight the need to get guns off our streets, we know that.
Order.
Senator, I understand.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Order across the chamber. I cannot hear the minister's response. Minister Wong, please continue.
We know that Australia's gun laws were substantially reformed in the wake of the Port Arthur tragedy, and we saw bipartisan support from
Order. Order.
Bipartisan support from John Howard, Kim Beazley, Tim Fischer, for Mr. Broadbridge, thank you, for action. And it is, I think it is sad that for the Australian community that we see such politicisation.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Mackenzie.
On relevancy, my question was, would the Bondi Beach have been attack been able to occur had the unfair firearm laws been in place?
Do not continue speaking when I call you to order. You've made a point of order. I've noted your question, and the minister is being directly relevant. Minister, please continue.
Well, this is the advice I have, Senator. If the national reform package had already been in place, the gunman would not have been eligible to hold firearms at all.
There you go.
The father would have been ineligible because he was not a citizen. The firearms that they were using would not have been available to them. And the son, who did not have a firearms licence in any event, had he tried, any intelligence holdings with respect to him would have formed part of the licensing decision. So, Senator, this is one of the many reasons why you should be voting for it. Now, Senator, no one is pretending that guns deal with everything. And the gun buyback legislation is only one aspect of what the government is doing, and what the parliament is doing. As I said, as the Prime Minister said and I referenced earlier, The gunmen at Bondi, the murderers at Bondi, had hate in their minds and guns in their hands, and we need to deal with both. And it is a matter of great regret.
Thank you, Minister. The time for responding has expired. Senator McKenzie, first supplementary.
Australia already has tough gun laws in place. The question is, are the existing laws being implemented effectively? How did a person who was assessed by ASIO for close ties with an Islamic State terrorism cell able to access firearms in the state of New South Wales?
Senator McKenzie, resume your seat. I reminded those on my right particularly, when questions are being asked, the senator has the right for that question to be heard in silence. That is my expectation. Senator McKenzie, please continue.
Madam President, I did finish. I finished on New South Wales.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, President. Well, Senator, that is precisely why we need the legislation that you seem to wish to oppose. That is precisely one of the reasons why we need this legislation. And look, I understand the constituency and the communities that you seek to represent, and you're right. There are many decent, law-abiding gun owners. But we also know that we have more guns now in our country than after the Port Arthur reforms were in place. We know, as I said earlier, that if we had stricter gun laws in the shape that is coming to this chamber, that the two gunmen responsible are unlikely to have been able to obtain a weapon. So what I'd say to you, yes, it is worth doing. It is worth regulating. David Marr, the brother of the police officer, Mr. Peter Marr, who was killed, has made some comments, and I'll refer to them in my next answer.
Minister Wong. Senator McKenzie, second supplementary.
If the government's firearm reforms are purportedly intended as a response to the 14 December terrorist attack, why is the government proposing new restrictions on the imports of gel balls for toy skirmish markers and handguns for competition sports? How does restricting these items respond to what happened at Bondi Beach?
Thank you, Senator McKenzie. Minister Wong.
Thank you. My recollection is those provisions were in part as a result of the advice from national security agencies, but I'm sure that will be, well, you know, that is laughing at that, Senator, I find remarkable. But anyway, Senator,
order. Order. Once again, order across the chamber. Minister Wong, please continue.
Thank you, President. David Marr, the brother of former police officer Peter Marr killed at Bondi, has said an anti-Semite without a gun is a hate-filled person, an anti-Semite with a gun is a killer. So, Senator, I'll take the interjection. What about a car? They are not the same thing, Senator.
Order.
They are not the
Senator
same
Davey.
thing.
Order. Order. Senator Cox.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Health and Disability and Ageing, Minister McAllister. We know the events of December 14 have had a profound impact on our Jewish communities and people across Australia. What mental health support is the Albanese Labor government providing to those affected by the Bondi terror attack?
Minister McAllister.
Thank you, President. This has been a difficult summer for all Australians, but particularly for the Jewish community and to those who were at Bondi on the 14th of December. And to those who were affected by the attack, I want to acknowledge the grief, the trauma and the distress that you are working through. Every Australian's heart is with you. I also want to thank the mental health workers who have been supporting the people and the families who have been impacted by the attack. The work you do is often hard and it is always important, and I know that many of you have been managing your own grief while you are helping others. As the Senate acknowledged yesterday in its condolence motion, the impact of the Bondi attack includes the trauma of the men, women and children who were injured physically and psychologically, including those who witnessed the horror. And that is why our government is responding with formal mental health supports, responding promptly after that attack to deliver immediate assistance. The $42.6 million package is intended to help those most affected by this tragedy. It includes $14.2 million for targeted mental health supports for the Jewish community, and this funding has been made available through organisations with established links to communities nationally, such as Jewish House and Jewish Care. A further $4.5 million has also been provided to primary health networks in the Sydney region and areas with significant Jewish communities. We've committed to establishing a Medicare mental health centre within the Bondi area. The centre will have a specific focus on trauma support and will provide free walk-in services. Work is well underway and we expect operations to start next week.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Cox, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. In the wake of such a traumatic event, coordinated support is critical. How is the Albanese Labor government working with New South Wales agencies and non-government organisations to deliver support?
Minister McAllister.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Cox. We know that this event may affect people in different ways, and it's why our package includes targeted support for particular cohorts in addition to the support that I have already mentioned. We've provided $5.6 million to the Black Dog Institute's National Emergency Worker Support Service. This service provides an online mental health assessment and triage service, as well as free psychological sessions with a particular focus on PTSD. 12 free sessions will be made available to any first responder, including lifeguards and other community members who responded to the attack. We've provided $3 million for targeted support to young Australians, and this will extend the hours of Headspace Bondi and support Headspace mental health training and education sessions to school staff, students, parents and carers in schools across Australia.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Cox, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. We know the devastating impact that the Bondi terror attack has had and continues to have on all Australians. How can people access support during this difficult time?
Minister McAllister.
Thank you, President. Violence casts a long shadow, and many Australians will carry the scars from December 14 with them for a lifetime. Lifeline, Beyond Blue, eHeadspace, Your Town's Kid Helpline and 13 Yarn have been provided a share in $7.6 million to scale up capacity and provide additional crisis support. Many who have visited the Bondi Hub will have seen Lifeline teams on the ground, and I thank them for their ongoing assistance. Support is available to all Australians, no matter where you are, through the Better Access Initiative. And through the Better Access Initiative, eligible people can access Medicare benefits for up to 10 individual and 10 group psychological services per calendar year. We are monitoring service usage and eager to hear from service users directly, and we stand ready to do more over time.
Thank you, Minister. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I ask that further questions be placed on notice.